So let's see. It doesn't take you to the overworld. It takes you straight back to Lumiere. Is it? I see. Okay, fair enough. So from here, you can basically take the flag to get back out onto the continent, so that's fine. Okay, so what we will do is we will redo things here. I'm going to edit out these fights, and then we'll rejoin back at when we make the choice. I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah. Okay, so a little clarification here. I think it's a little bit confusing how to get back here, potentially, for some people. So what happened was, title screen happened, I pressed continue, it showed Lumiere, and I loaded it up, and it looked like you are taken to, basically the last save that you have appears to be before you fight Renoir. So I was there, and I ran up to it, and I was like, wait, he's not here. Why is he not here? And it turns out that the autosave is basically, it creates a new one after you've defeated him, and then through that you can basically go back to the overworld and continue on. So then if you were like, yeah, but I wanted to turn the clock back and beat him again, but we have the autosave system, what am I supposed to do? Because you saw, when you press continue, there's only one slot, and when you load game, there's only one slot. So I was a bit baffled. I was like, wait, I have to do everything again? Like, how do I get back to this point? Now, someone told me that you can fight Renoir again, but turns out I don't have to do that either. So what happened for me, at least, I'm on PC, and it's early August that I'm recording this, so maybe this was changed in patches, or it's PC versus PS5. I haven't looked into any of this. But what I did, just for anyone who might want to know, is I pressed select, and when you go to load previous saves, it's not just the one autosave slot. These are basically all checkpoints. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, this is when I started playing, so maybe the most recent session that you played, it keeps like, I don't know, like the last 15, 20 checkpoint slots. So there's nothing from any, obviously, previous session I played. But through this, I navigated through this, and I was able to find the exact save where I get to basically make the choice again. So your mileage may vary, but it seems like there are definitely ways to not have to basically do the entire ending sequence twice, or have to start a new game, or do any of that stuff. You can do it within the same session. So I think that's how it works. And, well, that's what I was able to do, but it might be a bit different for you. So if you want to get both choices, make sure you are careful about how you do that stuff. So let's go again. And this time we'll make the other choice. Oh, man. Yeah, it's such a rough choice because both of them, like, there's literally two quotes from Papa there. One supports one side or one supports the other, you know? The whole hold on to each other. And I guess one of the reasons why I did fight as Mael in this one was I was kind of hoping that once we do defeat Verso, he obviously shows signs of like, I kind of want this to be over now. I'm done. I'm done with this whole charade. But maybe, just maybe, we find a way to still make him hold on to what he does have here. Obviously, the entire game has been about meeting and building bonds with people. And obviously the relationships that he now has with the likes of CL and Lune, and, well, he already had with SKA and Monoko, but he built them up even more. And it's like, is that not worth fighting for? Because for Verso, there are no choices. It's either Oblivion, or it's staying, you know, holding on to what he does have. And so I was kind of hoping we'd be able to somehow, you know, have an ending in which we get to keep Verso here. Like, he decides still, despite it all, he wants to continue in this creation along with Mael, and they have the same scene, but it's actually Verso. It is the most realist form of Verso we have, with his soul intact or whatever. But that didn't happen. So now we have to do the more cruel choice and see what happens if we fight as Verso and get Mael out of this canvas and potentially just destroy this canvas altogether and move on. Let's do it. Wow. I think he might kill her in one set of hits. They do have dialogue, so I want them to kind of talk.
Verso, stop!
Okay.
You can't just decide this for everyone!
We're all hypocrites, doing the same thing to each other.
Okay, so that is pretty much the only dialogue we have, and so we can end this. Sorry, Mael. Yeah. Alright.
Don't do this. Don't leave me again.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, huh? You've got this incredible power to paint. You'll never have to suffer a life you don't want. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
Oh man. I don't want to say goodbye.
I will miss you guys. It's okay. It's over. Verso.
Okay, so this part of it is what we expected to happen, but what will happen on the outside? Are we going to get to see any of that? Like Alicia, Papa, A Life to Love.
miroir du temps, nos histoires s'alignent dans le creux de nos mains. Deux mondes se dessinent, l'un peint de rêve où le chagrin s'efface, l'autre nu et réel où notre deuil prend place. Dans le dessin, toile vierge, horizon lointain, peignons ensemble les couleurs de demain, au clair obscur, œuvres infinies. Chaque pas trace la route d'une vie. Au lendemain non écrit, sous les étoiles où tout commence, rien ne finit. Dans le dessin.
Brutal. Brutal. Yeah, both endings were incredibly sad in their own way. I wouldn't even call them bittersweet. They're like 90% bitter. Oh, it's rough. Wow. Okay, here we go again. Literally the biggest emotional spike I had from all the ending sequences was when Verso had to say goodbye to Esuke and Monoko. That made me well up. All of it was really sad anyway, but yeah, so that's basically what I thought would happen for that ending. It's just one of those where it's like, I feel like there is no right or wrong, but if you really have to put a gun to my head, that's probably the way things have to be, the second ending. I think that's probably the more correct one. In the sense of, I do feel like it's trying to tell a story of grief and moving on and coping with loss. And obviously a lot of the damage that's been done to this family has been done because of the grief that they've suffered and their inability to cope with the loss of Verso and to move on. And I think Renoir's the only person in that family, maybe Cleo as well, that was kind of able to do that, to understand, you know, what it would take to move on. And obviously Alicia and Aline couldn't, and they were trapped inside this sort of, I guess, dream world, you know, like not true reality, and they were completely lost in it. And in order to let that go and to move on, they had to basically destroy it. And so a lot of very real feelings, a lot of very real relationships had to be lost for that to happen. But I think ultimately they end up gaining something real as a result. So like that sort of little embrace between Renoir and his wife, that did feel like significant, you know, like as in that was a true moment of moving on and kind of sharing their grief. And I think the game, at the end of the day, one of the biggest quotes of the game is "Tomorrow comes." And if you live in a world that's like, you know, the painted sort of dream world, in that sense, there is no tomorrow, because it's all kind of, I don't know if like how time passes in that sense, or what rules they have over that. Do you just kind of exist indefinitely? What feels like indefinitely to them, you know? And so I think when push comes to shove, you have to, even if it's the more cruel option, it's the more difficult option, you kind of have to choose existence, you know, like the thing that's the most true, the thing that's reality. So yeah, incredibly tough choice. I don't feel like satisfied in that sense with either one. They're great endings, because I think they tell just a very real and difficult story, and just very, very hard things to deal with in life. Death, grief, moving on, the difference between existence and living. It's, you know, it's all very, very tough stuff and very, very heavy stuff. And I think the game did a really nice job of exploring all of those things and presenting it to us. So yeah, fantastic game, amazing game. I really, really enjoyed this. I would say it's pretty much lived up to the hype for me. I mean, so much of it was so excellent. Obviously, since I talked a lot about the story, I think the story overall was truly brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It deals with a lot of things that I personally have always found interesting. A lot of the questions that's been asked, a lot of the kind of existential crisis. I'm the type of person that's quite introspective about those things. I do think about these things probably a little more than the average person, to a fault potentially sometimes. You know, existence, death, the difference between what's real and what isn't, and all of these things, that they're all just very kind of, they're both very objective but also very kind of subjective at the same time, you know, like, so they're all very complicated topics for me, and I always find myself just having different thoughts and flip-flopping between different ideas and beliefs and all of that kind of stuff. And this game definitely made me think about it and challenge a lot of those ideas, because especially like those two endings, they're really sort of indicative of, there's just aspects of both that you really gravitate to, and I think you see the right side of. But yeah, definitely a really, really great game in terms of that stuff. I really like the dialogue and the way that it was presented, the scenes, the bonding moments, the campfire stuff was wonderful. The quality of the voice acting and the acting in general for a debut game that I assume didn't have like a super insane budget. I don't know what the budget was for this game, but if I had to guess, compared to like AAA powerhouse cinematic games, it probably was a fraction of it. And so as we see like the lead cast here, like just a fantastic job by everybody involved. And they really did a great job of telling the story. Like the emotional peaks were there. There was a lot of great humor as well. It really, in that sense, it really had it all, and it really again appealed to my own personal taste. A lot of people who played the game before I did, or that were further ahead than I was, a lot of people said like, this is your kind of game. But I do feel like it's going to appeal to you, and I think you're going to enjoy this one. And you guys were right. I never had much doubt in the first place, because as soon as I saw a few of the things from the early trailers and the early speculation, I was pretty convinced anyway. But I definitely am now that I've got to the end of it. Obviously, a lot of I feel like thematic reference to games like Final Fantasy X, even in obviously the painting versus the dreams of the faith. Obviously, to me, those two ideas are very similar. And this game really executed it very nicely without it feeling like some kind of rip-off or copy of anything that's come before it. It's a very, I felt still like a unique take and presentation of some really interesting and heavy topics. And so, yeah, I think story-wise, for me, it was fantastic, and it really drew me in, and I loved playing through the story of this game. And then obviously the gameplay is the next big element, and that for me was also truly brilliant. Obviously the turn-based thing is the highlight, but I think moving forward, like playing more and more of the game, yes, of course, the turn-based aspect is fantastic, and I loved it, and I will continue to enjoy it in the post-game, but I think all of the other elements were also, it all came together to form this really satisfying kind of collective. And the way that the party members, like the party structure, I thought was great. I did enjoy like the party members that we had. The way that, at least to me, it seemed like they had their own kind of fundamental strengths, and it was nice the way that you could either play to what you consider their fundamental strengths to be, or kind of build them in a different way. And I think, for example, someone like Lune is a great example of this, because I built her up to be more of a tanky healer kind of character, because I think naturally she has more kind of healing abilities than someone like Mael, for example, obviously. But I've definitely heard already even from a small pool of people that I've talked to about the game, that they built Lune up to be much more of a damage-dealing powerhouse because of her multi-hit stuff and like her crit rate and that kind of stuff. And you can definitely tackle it in multiple different ways, and I think it's very versatile in that sense as well, which I really appreciated. So let's head back to the world map before I continue this little kind of review bit. So now if I fire this up, it should be after that fight. Yeah, so Romaro's been defeated, but there are other secrets yet to be uncovered. So we'll get to that, but let me finish up with my little monologue first. Let's go back to the... Whoops. I press up to kind of scroll back to the bottom. Let's go back to the continent. So yeah, gameplay-wise, I think that part of it was really nice. Thankfully, I think in that sense, it really did work really nicely for me, because the turn-based stuff just allowed you to kind of strategize and plan mid-battle, which I've always loved, because of course I come from that sort of the earliest experiences I had of RPGs were JRPGs and Final Fantasy X, so all of that stuff's very obvious to anyone watching. And so I naturally do, of course, gravitate to that kind of thing. And also, of course, they added in, to make things more dynamic and to make it still more of an action-y RPG, was the dodging and the parrying element. That's the bit I was the most worried about, I think, at the start. I had no doubt that the more kind of Final Fantasy X and Persona 5 style of kind of turn-based combat was going to work for me. I was going to enjoy that. But what was I going to think of the dodging and parrying? And I think for me, ultimately, I ended up getting much more used to it, and I started to enjoy it a lot more. And I feel like it's pretty evident from what you've seen of my gameplay that even if you're not particularly great at parrying, which I definitely am not, even after like 50 hours, I'm not exactly parrying everything, you can leverage like your experience with turn-based games or with JRPGs in general to kind of strategize and plan your way around the fact that you're not an incredible parrier. So, of course, the people who are going to be best at this game are the people that do have the parrying skills and also are very good at kind of constructing builds and understanding how to get the most out of their characters and the strategic side of things. Then those guys are going to thrive. And I think there's room on either side for other types of player too. So I really think, in that sense, it actually has quite a lot of broad appeal, I think. Because let's say a game like Final Fantasy X, which for viewers of this channel is kind of one of the ultimate turn-based games, you can of course argue that for Final Fantasy X, if you're a bit more of an action guy, it's just going to be too slow for you. Like, you don't want to play it just like as a menu selection simulator kind of thing, right? But this game, it can kind of cross the boundaries. And let's say you're more of an action player and you play a lot of games that have the sort of the dodging and parrying elements, you can still find a lot of enjoyment and utility from this game. And I think that's part of why it sold so well. I don't think it was purely just Final Fantasy fans or like, you know, JRPG fans who wanted more turn-based combat in kind of more modern-looking games that have brought this game. I do think there's definitely a crowd of more action-based people that have gravitated to this one as well. I mean, literally within a few weeks of the game releasing, I already saw like some channels that are known best for Soulsborne doing like, oh, can you beat Expedition 33 at level 1 and all that kind of shit. So those guys were immediately onto it because they saw all of the parrying and all of this business and they thought, yes, this is what I do. And so they came into the mix pretty quickly as well. So I think gameplay-wise, it's been really excellent so far. The mechanics, like for example, the Last Stand thing, I thought was excellent. I think the gameplay for me peaked at the end of Act 2. Unfortunately, I became a bit OP by Act 3. I didn't exactly do like a huge ton of things, but the difficulty between the end of Act 2 and what we did in Act 3 felt a bit too small to me. I was a little bit surprised, if I'm being honest. Like, based on the HP numbers and stuff, I thought we should be getting like maybe 50 to 100% more HP for like Renoir and like some of the stuff that we fought before it. So that surprised me a little, if I'm being honest. But I think if I was like a little less leveled, I think it would have been just as intense. And I think what happened like towards the end of Act 2 really demonstrated how great the gameplay can be in this game. And it was some of the most intense and most fun like gameplay experiences that I've had in quite some time. So yeah, gameplay was top notch for me, and I'm going to continue to enjoy it and hopefully continue to get better and beat everything that there is to beat in this game. We'll keep it on expert difficulty for the post game too, because I mean, I've been riding with that for like 20-30 hours now. And of course it's very punishing when you're facing difficult enemies and you can't parry properly. But hey, again, that's just part of the game. And I will try to make up for that with my kind of strategizing, planning, being at the right level, having the right kind of setup. And then obviously eventually getting better at the parrying as well for the most difficult stuff. So yeah, gameplay, absolutely top notch. Characters, I loved. I mean, this guy right here, as we're flying through the world, SK, absolutely love him. One of my absolute favorite NPCs that I've come across in pretty much any game. I absolutely loved SKA. He's so good, and that's why I just got so emotional when we had to say goodbye to him, when Verso said goodbye to him in the story. And it's a really rough moment, but love SKA. Love my party members. I think everyone really came into their own. I think CL initially I wasn't as invested in, but seeing how strong she became in battle automatically made me more invested. And then obviously the campfire stuff, learning more about her story and her past, and building her relationship with Verso. I definitely came to enjoy her presence a lot more as well. And yeah, everybody I thought was really excellent. I think from the antagonist side, there was a lot of really nice work. A lot of blurred lines, of course. First we started with the paintress, and then once we got there, we kind of realized what her story was and what her reason for being here was. And then, of course, it turned more to Renoir, and then we made progress with him, and we realized what he's been trying to do all along. And he's one of the only people that kind of sees the sort of real-world damage that's going on as a result of his family's inability to let go of Verso. And so you really do feel for, I think, what he wants to achieve. And he doesn't seem like he's taking pleasure in what he's doing here, but he's truly believed that this is the only way for this family to move on. And honestly, for the memory of Verso to, I think, live on in a more positive way, because all he's experiencing on his own side is just grief and pain, basically. And so I think a lot of complex characters there. The way that he's introduced into the story, obviously the first time we see him, the way that he just destroys the expedition. There's a lot of hard-hitting moments. Obviously the Gamage, incredibly memorable, like tragic scene, but just so beautifully choreographed that I couldn't help but just like be almost like enthralled by it. And so just a lot of beautiful imagery in this game. The visuals, absolutely stunning throughout. A lot of great creativity. And even this here, the overworld, one thing we've always wondered a lot as Final Fantasy fans is, you know, we had a lot of the overworlds from yesteryear, from the absolute peak glory days of Final Fantasy, and a lot of us thought, are we ever going to see it again in this way? And some people at least said it can't really be done anymore because of the way the games look and play now. But this sort of miniature style that they've come up with is so beautiful, and I'm absolutely sure it's going to be utilized a lot more in games to come. And so I think this was a really nice feature as well of the game. And so I have so much positive to say. I just really love this game, and I'm so glad I got to play it and present it for you guys. And I really hope you enjoyed it. I apologize it took so long to upload the full playlist. I had to kind of prioritize Tactics because that started before this one, and I'd already made a lot of momentum. But Tactics is a great game, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it, but this game is truly something special, and I'm really, really glad I got to share it with you all. And so, some gripes, honestly, not many. The game is so good, I have a few like major things. I think, working backwards, I think the final battles maybe of Act 3 could have been a little bit better in terms of their difficulty. I still think, because yes, I did dabble in some side stuff and I did do some character side quests and stuff, but I think when you give the player the ability to literally fly around the world map, and then you say, you could just go and finish the story, or you can utilize this brand new ability that we've given you to explore some more of the world first, you're going to have to assume that, especially because the end of Act 2 did have some challenging fights, you think if you go straight into Lumiere now, you're probably going to have a rough time. And what I want to explore, I want to see more of the world and make use of this new flying ability. And so that's all well and great, but it seems like if you do that, and you expand those character relationships, which I think is another intuitive thing to do before you try to finish the story, it does become potentially a little bit too easy compared to how things were towards the end of Act 2. So that's one minor thing, but that's very subjective across different playthroughs, so that's definitely a very personal one for me. 2, I still think the structure of the start of Act 3 was a little confusing. Again, they give you SKA like that, and I spent a bit of time looking for what to do next, because I knew that there was some quests that were a bit more character-driven and story-driven, but when you just explore around organically, depending on what you hit first, you're just constantly getting slapped around by these like post-game level bosses, and it's like, well, where's the quests? And the first like campfire that they force you into, that should have been the time when I think already some quests like trigger, or they give you an indication that that's where you need to sort of get going. So it wasn't until I returned to the camp that I realized that you can actually do some more character quests there. So I think that structure was a little strange. I think the content of Act 3 itself was really, really good, but maybe the presentation I think could have done with a little work. So that's another one of my personal kind of gripes. Gameplay wise, I think one of the only things was perhaps I think when the character is attacking, I think the timing of like having to do QTEs on your own attacks, I'm personally not as big a fan of. I get the parrying and the dodging, and that made a lot of sense, but having the animations like come up for basically every single attack, sometimes I just want to kind of sit back and enjoy the attack. I want to look at it, I want to watch it, and so having to still like be on trigger and have those things on the screen and focus on like getting the timing right instead of just being able to watch your move play out, I personally didn't enjoy that as much. I felt like it didn't add as much to the gameplay as the dodging and the parrying did, which certainly kind of creates a whole different dynamic. I think for me, because I'm much more like still on the turn-based end of things, the game wouldn't have really lost anything for me if the attacking QTEs just never appeared, like you didn't see them on the screen. I would have preferred to just select my move and just watch it play out and just enjoy the animation and the visuals and seeing the damage and stuff instead of looking at that. So that's a minor thing as well. What else? I think off the top of my head, those are some of the main ones, and honestly, if you put them all together as a collective, it's not really that much. I think enemy variety was generally good. I mean, I don't really have any problems with that, because the enemies themselves have good variety, and they have variety within their movesets. There's a lot of different bosses to fight. There's plenty of content. The game didn't drag on too long. My playthroughs are always longer than the average because of the format, because of my own playstyle anyway, but also because of the format that I play in for an audience. And given that, and I have done quite a lot of side material already, I think we're in a good place. So it's not a game that's tried to be like 100, 150 hours long. I thought so, in that sense, the pacing was pretty nice too. The music, I thought, was really beautiful. There's very few places where I didn't feel the presence of the music and that the music was adding, the music wasn't adding something. It almost always did, in every location, in every fight, in every scene. And so I thought the soundtrack was really beautiful as well, complemented the game well, and yeah, had a lot of beauty to it. And so yeah, I think by and large, I think those are my thoughts on the game. There's a lot more I could talk about, I'm sure, But I think for now, because the playlist will continue, there's still a lot of work to do to try and beat everything that's left. I think I will leave it at that and just say that this was truly a really, really special game. And pretty much everyone I spoke to absolutely loved it. And I definitely understand why, and I'm definitely in that camp as well. It's one of the best games I've played in recent years. Probably a top 10 of all time. I think that's saying something. Like Persona 5 Royal was something I played off-channel that I thought was absolutely brilliant and fantastic, and I really, really loved that. That's like a top 10 for me as well. And oof, this, or like Persona 5 Royal, I kind of loved them in very different ways, and so oof, that is also a very hard decision for me as well. But the fact that it's in that realm among some of the best games I've ever played, I think it's definitely saying something. So massive congratulations to the team. S tier game for me, lived up to the hype, and I'm looking forward to sharing more from the post-game. There should be some more story. I think in terms of the story, just to touch on that briefly before we continue, I think the biggest element of the story that I'm curious about is what's going on with Clea and her war and the talk of the writers. There's this obviously talk of the writers and then the fire. It seems like whatever happened to Verso happened as a result of the writers, because it seems like they're responsible for the fire. But who are the writers? What is their deal? Are they like even more powerful than the painters? I don't really know. And so I'm kind of hoping we learn a little bit more about Clea and the writers from some of the side material that's left. And so we shall see. But I think for now, I'm going to wrap this episode up. If you have been enjoying things so far, please stick around. I will be doing more of the post-game. And even though I'm playing this on PC, I've got the phrase like platinum, because I play a lot of the games on PS5. I'll basically try and get the equivalent of whatever a platinum is, and I'll show you guys how I do that along the way. So stick around. If you yourself are going to play this game, or you are playing, and you want to see like how to get everything, then hopefully I will eventually present that to you in this playthrough as well. So thank you all for watching. Really appreciate the support and the kind words. I've had a lot of people say really lovely things about the playthrough, and it seems to have been generally enjoyed by many. Anytime a game is this good and I'm enjoying it as well, it tends to be a recipe for good viewing as well. So hopefully it's one of the better, more memorable playlists on the channel. And so with that, I will sign off. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys soon, because tomorrow comes. Take care, guys.